What do white spots, a call for a doctor, and a bloody bread knife have in common? You're about to find out in this fun-sized felony. Welcome back to Forgotten Felonies. I'm Monica, and this is a fun-sized felony. Before we begin, no felony is ever fun. When I say fun-sized, I mean the story is short, not that the crime itself was light or trivial. It was the afternoon of Saturday, February 12th, 1927. A frantic man by the name of Frank Caruso burst into the drugstore at 403 Smith Street and told the druggist, "My boy is sick. White spots in his throat. Give me something for him. Get me a doctor, please." Little Joey Caruso had been stricken with diphtheria 2 weeks earlier. He wasn't given medical treatment throughout any of it, actually, but the health department sent some people to their home and they quarantined the family. The children couldn't go to school, and their father, who worked as a plasterer, he couldn't go to work. Peter Pendola, who was the druggist at the drugstore, he called quite a few physicians, and he found that none of them were in their offices on a Saturday. Peter then decided to call his very own brother, 27-year-old Dr. Casper Pendola. Casper said that he would head to the Caruso home as soon as he could, but he lived an hour away. He arrived at the third-floor Brooklyn apartment late afternoon that Saturday, and he gave 6-year-old Joey Caruso an injection of what is only called antitoxin. The next day, Sunday, February 13th, Joey seemed to be improving until he wasn't. It was hard for him to breathe, and he was noticeably weaker. His mother sat beside her oldest son, holding his hand while she nursed a little baby Ethel. Poor Mrs. Caruso was screaming that Joey was going to die. Frank then called the Holy Family Hospital and begged for both an ambulance and a doctor. Dr. Rocco Abbado arrived in just a few minutes. Frank met him at the door and hurried him inside. Frank was frantic again. "He is very low. You save him. I'll give you everything if you save him. His mother thinks he's dying. He can't be dying, can he? You save him." Joey was lying on a cot in the kitchen near the stove where he'd been placed so that he would stay warm and wouldn't be around the other 5 children. He was very pale, and he was as still as a wax figure. The doctor bent over him to take a look. Frank got closer, looking back and forth from the doctor's face to little Joey's. "Sorry, very sorry. The boy is dead. Diphtheria, no doubt." Dr. Abbado picked up his hat and coat, and he walked down the stairs to leave. Frank followed him and said in his Sicilian accent, "That doctor last night, he kill my boy. He kill my Joey." It was 2:30 that afternoon when Dr. Casper Pendola, full of cheer, came back to the apartment asking, "How's the little patient today?" Frank and Dr. Pendola went into a bedroom. From outside of the room, his wife could hear noises, like chairs being turned over. She heard a window break, and then Frank Caruso came back out from the room alone. Dr. Pendola had first been strangled, and then he was stabbed. His throat was actually slashed. His wife, Marie, saw that he had a bread knife in his hand. Blood was dripping from both the knife and his hands. Frank said, "The doctor killed the boy. I have killed the doctor." Then he went to a sink and he washed his hands. He kissed his wife and he said, "Goodbye, I'm going now. I'll come back later and give myself up to the police and tell them everything." At that point, Frank took the other 5 children, leaving Mrs. Caruso in the kitchen. Frank had the 2 youngest children, 1-month-old Edith and 2-year-old Salvatore, in his arms, and the others, 9-year-old Lena, 8-year-old Josephine, and 3-year-old Anna, they followed behind as he led them downstairs to the apartment of Terrence O'Hanlon, who lived on the first floor. He told Terrence he was going to leave the children there for a while and he'd be back. Before Terrence could ask any questions, Frank was gone. Mrs. Caruso rushed down to the O'Hanlon apartment and told him, "The doctor's dead." Terrence then called the police, who arrived shortly after. Mrs. Caruso and her 5 kids were still with Terrence when the police arrived. Mrs. Caruso, baby Ethel, and then the two oldest girls went to the Hamilton Avenue station. It was ordered that Mrs. Caruso be held as a material witness, and she was transferred to the Bergen Street station for the night. They allowed her to take baby Ethel with her, but the rest of the children were taken by ambulance to the Kings County Hospital for inoculation and quarantine because they'd all been exposed to the disease that had killed little Joey. When questioning other witnesses, it was found out that Dr. Pendola had told his brother-in-law, right after he had seen little Joey, that Joey's illness was hopeless, but he had given Joey the antitoxin as a last resort. Joey's throat was already closed, he said. Mrs. Marie Caruso told the police that Frank had a brother who lived on Staten Island, and sure enough, they found Frank there waiting for them. 35-year-old Frank Caruso was in custody by that night, facing a charge of murder in the first degree. He said to the police, "He killed my boy, so I killed him. He laughed at me when I told him my boy was dead. I choked him until he was blue in the face, then I cut his throat." When Mrs. Caruso heard that he had been arrested and he was facing murder charges, she was beside herself. Marie shouted, "No, no, my husband didn't do it. He is a good man. He wouldn't kill anybody. I did it. I did it. My husband loved his boy. I killed the doctor." Frank stood before Judge McCloskey on Monday, February 14th, 1927. He insisted that Dr. Pendola had killed his son because he had stabbed him in the back with a needle full of poison. "He jabbed my boy. I jabbed him. He killed my Joey. I killed him. White spots my boy had in his throat. I cut the doctor's throat." That's what he said. So he was Sicilian and he spoke very broken English. It was the following Friday, February 18th, that he was officially indicted on a charge of murder in the first degree. He was held at the Raymond Street Jail. Meanwhile, in Maspeth, Long Island, Dr. Casper Pendola's wife of just 18 months was really suffering. They had an 8-month-old baby girl, Kathleen. Mrs. Helen Pendola was actually a nurse, and she worked with her husband. She said that nobody would have known that the two of them were married unless they had seen him steal a kiss. Helen Pendola felt that the electric chair would be too good for Frank Caruso. The trial began on Monday, April 4th, 1927. The defense was that Frank Caruso was ignorant of modern science. Dr. Pendola's widow, Helen, took the stand. She was dressed in traditional mourning garb, so she's wearing all black from head to toe. She said that her husband had told her about the Caruso boy that he had just attended to. He called it the worst case of diphtheria he had ever seen. He told her that little Joey's neck was horribly swollen. Dr. Pendola then bathed, disinfected his clothes, and shampooed his hair, just in case any of those disease microbes came home with him. Meanwhile, Frank Caruso sat listening, with his hands nervously clasped in his lap. He kept his tear-filled eyes on the floor. It was 3 days later that Frank took the stand himself. In broken English, he said that the man at the drugstore had told him that the dose of antitoxin purchased for little Joey was too strong. He also said that he hadn't initially planned to kill Dr. Pendola, but he laughed a little when Frank told him that Joey's death was his fault. The laugh just flipped a switch in him and he went crazy, he said. That same afternoon, the case went to the jury. After 4 hours and 34 minutes, he was found guilty of first-degree murder. The death sentence would be handed down later on April 18th. The date of execution was set for June 13th, less than 2 months away, so he had a date with the electric chair. But, as you probably all know, all of these death sentence trials face automatic appeals. Frank's counsel was good at what they did, and they were able to overturn the verdict and secure him a second trial. The second trial was set to begin on January 30th, 1928. Just before the trial began, however, Frank Caruso stood before County Judge McLaughlin and pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for February 28th. At this hearing, he received a sentence of 10 years. In the end, This is one of those cases that doesn't sit neatly in a box. A little boy died from a disease that, at the time, still carried real fear and misunderstanding. A father, overwhelmed by grief and convinced someone was to blame, made a decision he could never take back. And a doctor, who walked into that apartment just to help, never walked out again. Frank Caruso would serve 6 years of that 10-year sentence and eventually fade into quiet obscurity, passing away in 1968 at the age of 77. But the moment that defined his life lasted for just minutes. It's a reminder that sometimes the line between desperation and destruction is far thinner than anyone realizes. On February 13th of 1927, 6 children lost their fathers. 5 of those children were Frank Caruso's kids, and 1 was the daughter of Helen and Casper Pendola. This has been a fun-sized felony.